So once all the lawyers got involved and it took a couple of years to settle, once that got settled, Vince ended up owning everything.
So you threw out all those legal terms just now, and now you're probably an expert at it. But at that time, I mean, you're like, Jesus Christ. I mean, what the fuck is this?
Well, everybody's going to have, when the ship goes down, everybody has a claim. And
right.
I'm not saying that their claim is not a righteous claim. Acclaim Entertainment, the video game company, owned 15% of the company.
Right.
So they were the ones saying, well, since we own 15%, the intellectual property rights and the footage of from all the TV shows should revert to us because we are minority owners. At the same time, and this was obviously used against them, they owed the company, which we didn't know. It was found out in the bankruptcy proceedings. They actually owed us a lot of money in royalties that they hadn't given us.
Right.
So that kind of negated their claim. And then they went into their own bankruptcy. So they kind of ended up being out of the picture. But then you have everybody else that's filing, oh, I'm owed money for this, or I'm owed money for that, or I was owed money on this royalty, or I'm owed money for these pay-per-views. And you have to sift through. There's a trustee, and the trustee was so overwhelmed by the enormity of the claims, not only against us, but to sit there and then say, well, what are the assets of the company? Well, the assets of the company include the outstanding invoices that we have out. Well, what outstanding invoices are that? And they think we're going to say, well, we're owed 50 grand for this box office and we didn't get our t-shirt money from this distributor. Oh, we're owed $2.8 million from the pay-per-view company. Oh my God, well, we got a lawsuit against them. Go right ahead. I think you ought to. And get that guy, Dan York, while you're at it. Get that guy in a deposition and let me attend it on that day. That's not what was best for the purchaser of the assets, which was the publicly traded stock WWE, because at the end of the day, what they wanted to do as a company was they wanted to acquire the assets of ECW and exploit the tape library, if not the intellectual property of being able to actually put on an ECW program.
When I first came in ECW, you talk about messed up locker room, mister. I mean, because, there at the famous ECW arena, there was a lot of spaces and cubby holes and stuff.
Well, the statute of limitations has run out on a lot of things that we were doing back then, so you can freely.
That was an interesting place. Not just as far as
it was Caligula, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
There was sex, drugs, and rock and roll going on in that locker room beyond description. And people have tried to describe it and have failed to do so, I might add.
It was an interesting dynamic. I hooked up with the Pit Bulls, and those two good guys, and had a blast with them. And I had my entire stay there. I enjoyed my time in ECW. It was a bunch of good guys.
So the only demand on the performers that we had was just do everything you can to give the people a show and do the best to present yourself as a performer as best as you can. I mean, that was it was a theater company. And that's how I envisioned it. It was a theater company, and I wanted to get things out of my performers that nobody else could get out. And I wanted the people who came to our shows to acknowledge the fact that this is the best damn show they could ever see.
Hey, but man, going back to the, when I asked you about when the wheels fell off and how they fell off, and you broke all that down. But man, I've seen all y'all's great ECW shirts when y'all were on television. I mean, y'all had to sell a shit pile of merch.
Oh, yeah.
And there you have it.
And that's what happened. So finally, at the end of 2004, the bankruptcy settled to where WWE purchased the assets of ECW and released the rise and fall of ECW videotape, DV. And again, we talk about technology. Nobody does videotapes anymore,
right?
Which is why, and they finally ran out of interesting people to interview for their own documentaries. I'll call it a documentary, and they still call it a DVD.
Yeah.
Well, within a year, there'll be no more DVDs. It'll just be Blu-ray. And a year from that, there'll be no more Blu-rays. It'll be something else. So I refuse to call it a Heyman DVD. It's the Heyman documentary. But back then, it was the ECW documentary, the rise and fall of ECW. And they probably thought, hey, you know what? At least we'll make a few dollars back. Maybe we'll cover our costs for the lawyers for the bankruptcy and acquiring the assets. And lo and behold, it became the biggest selling DVD, videotape, whatever you call it, in WWE history. It caught them so off guard. It sold out everywhere to where no stores could carry it. Best Buy and PC Richards and Kmart and whatever else was a Tower Records, whatever was around back
Right.
then, because those distribution channels have changed as well. Everybody sold out on it. So by the time it was done, it sold like 1,000,000 units. And this was the biggest thing that had ever hit the video business in WWE. So at the time, Vince says, "Man, what are we going to do?" And it was actually Rob Van Dam that said, "Hey, man, before everybody gets too old, got to do one more show, but it has to be authentic. It has to be real."